If you bumped into a mannequin at a department store, you'd apologize to it, wouldn't you? Don't lie, you would. You'd probably check to see if the plastic figure was okay. We're told this reflex, this chronic reflexive niceness makes us good. Good people, good girls. But let's look at this through a slightly less sugary lens. What if I told you that your chronic niceness isn't kindness at all? What if it's conditioning that you've been gaslit into calling a personality? From the time you were handled your first doll, you were likely praised for being easy. Look how good she is. She's so quiet. Developmental psychology consistently shows that girls are praised more for compliance and agreeableness, while boys are praised more for assertiveness and independence. We internalize that being low maintenance is the rent we pay to exist in the world, and that's where the good girl myth forms. Today on Unsweetened, we're looking at the tax you pay for being the most agreeable person in the room. And spoiler alert, the cost is higher than you think. First, we need to make a very uncomfortable distinction. We need to separate kindness from niceness. Kindness is a value. It's rooted in ethics. It's helping an old lady cross the street. It's telling your friend she has spinach in her teeth even though it's awkward. Niceness? Niceness is a social strategy. You offer comfort. You receive approval. It is compliance disguised as virtue. Psychologists sometimes describe this as approval-seeking behavior driven less by moral conviction and more by anxiety regulation. Kindness is about them. Niceness? Often it's about you managing the discomfort as disapproval. Let's talk about the double bind. In one of the most famous workplace studies, the Heidi Howard case study from Columbia Business School, participants rated an entrepreneur as equally competent whether the resume said Howard or Heidi. But when the name was female, she was seen as less likable and more selfish. This pattern shows up repeatedly in research on gender and leadership. The more assertive and competent a woman appears, the less likable she is perceived to be. But the more accommodating and nice she is, the less she's respected. So you're struck. If you're firm, you're difficult. If you're nice, you're invisible. There's no stable middle, just constant calibration. So you adjust, you soften, you smooth the edges, not because it feels authentic, but because friction has consequences. This isn't a personal failure, it's a structural trap, and society loves this trap because agreeable people are a renewable source of free labor. In studies examining how attackers choose targets, researchers found they weren't necessarily looking for the physically weakest person. They often selected individuals who appeared uncertain, distracted, or non-assertive, people who signaled low resistance. Predators look for compliance, a small push, a minor inconvenience, a request framed like a favor. When someone pushes against your boundary, the nice reflex is to fawn, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. The fawn response, a trauma responsible identified in clinical psychology, involves appeasing a perceived threat to reduce harm. This can look like nervous laughter, smiling when you're uncomfortable, apologizing for someone else stepping on your foot. And when that becomes chronic, you essentially hang a neon sign over your head that says, "I will set myself on fire to keep you warm." And trust me, there are people looking for firewood. Pause for a second. When was the last time you said yes because the silence after a no felt physically painful? I'm betting it was today. Here's what happens to all those swallowed no's. They don't disappear, they convert. Suppressed boundaries turn into resentment, a low-grade anger with no obvious source. You call it burnout, you call it stress, but it's grief. Grief for the self that never got to say no. This is the hidden tax of the cool girl or the nice girl. You are managing everyone's ego, anticipating needs before they're spoken, and ensuring nobody feels bad. That is exhausting. And here's the cynical truth. People don't actually like you when you do this. Often, what they like is the comfort you provide, not the full complexity of you. If your relationship depends on you never having a dissenting opinion or a negative emotion, you don't have a relationship. You have a hostage situation, and you're the one holding the keys. So, what breaks the pattern? Not confidence, not empowerment, selectivity, kindness without compliance, being willing to be misunderstood. Nice works unpaid over time so the boss feels supported. Self-respect leaves at 5 because that's what the contract says. Nice avoids hard conversations. Kind tells the truth and survives the discomfort. The first time you set a boundary, people won't applaud your growth. They'll say, "You've changed. You're being difficult." Good. That's how you know you've stopped playing the role. Here's a lens I want you to adopt. Question who benefits from your silence. If the answer isn't you, stop being quiet. Chronic niceness is a cage. It's a very pretty cage, decorated with gold stars and Employee of the Month plaques and people saying she's such a sweetheart. But you can't live in a cage. If you found this breakdown helpful, or if it just made you uncomfortably aware of your own behavior, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm find other recovering people pleasers. Subscribe if you want more unsweetened breakdowns of the things we're not supposed to question. Now, go out there and disappoint someone today. It's good for your health.